Spoilers for One Punch Man ahead. So there's a pretty interesting contrast between these two characters, because while they essentially represent the same thing, being the epitome of a hero within their own respective world, the number one ranking, they kind of go about it completely differently. And I guess they have opposite viewpoints on how to handle this role, or just handle being a hero in general. So we'll go over them individually and, break them down. And then we'll start seeing the conflict between these two ideologies and how one might not necessarily be better than the other and vice versa. So All Might is the nth degree of being a hero, I would say, because ever since he was a kid, he's only had one dream, and that was being the quote-unquote symbol of peace. That's a term that you're going to hear a lot in My Hero Academia, especially if you start from the beginning of the series, because that's what All Might has essentially created here. He wants to be what everyone sees as justice, or just sees as being a hero. So I guess All Might wanted to become so incredibly overpowered that there was no one that could stand up to him. And that's basically what he did, using the power of One for All. And that's a whole other video that I've made, and I talked about it. Please check that out. But he's cultivated this power into becoming to the point of where no one can rival him. And not just any villains or anything. I mean, just crime or evil doing in general can't thrive under All Might's power. And it's not just his power, but it's also his work ethic and consistency. It's really incredible what he's done in the decades, I suppose, that he's had his hero career. It said that he reduced the crime rate to I don't remember the exact number, but it was under 10%, which is crazy. And I guess he made being a villain, or just being a bad guy, almost extinct, because this actually also talked about in the Overhaul arc, about how the Yakuza and gangs and stuff like that don't exist anymore because of All Might, because he's made it to the point of where you can't really do stuff like that anymore, because he'll just crack down on you, or he'll get to the bottom of it, and there's literally nothing you could do to stop him. And he literally became the symbol of peace, somebody that everyone can universally look up to and know that they are going to be saved by this person, and as long as he is around, everything is going to be okay. Now, Blast, on the other hand, we know a lot less about him than we do All Might, but we know enough to get the point across that there's a serious contrast here. And the best way to illustrate this is taking a look at the conversation between Sitch and the Hero Association executive in Chapter 85, when the executives call in Blast, because at this point in the story, things aren't looking good. The Monster Association is, causing serious trouble, and he's a top ranker, but he never does anything. Why is everything but his name shrouded in secrecy? And then Sitch says, we cannot order Blast's involvement. He only operates as a hero voluntarily. He refuses restrictions and hates attention, so we keep his identity secret even in the registry. We've determined that he's valuable enough to receive this special treatment. However, he will aid us when humanity faces a true crisis. So right there, we already see he's almost the opposite of All Might. The whole symbol of peace thing wants to be universally known as somebody that they can depend on. Blast, on the other hand, not so much. Now, also, I'm pretty sure Blast wants to be the number one hero still, despite him being pseudo-retired, which Sekigahara says. Because don't you think he would just say, hey, remove me from the rankings and just put Tatsumaki as number one? I'm thinking that he wants to be, the number one hero, because he still wants it to be known that he exists. Because, Sitch clearly says he will aid us when humanity faces a true crisis. So he is altruistic. It's not like he's, morally reprehensible or selfish or something like that. He just has an opposing ideology to that of All Might, which isn't necessarily the right thing to do, and we'll go into that. But another thing about Blast, and going more into his psychology, is we see him in the flashback 18 years ago when he's saving Tatsumaki from that facility. And he's talking to her, and he's like, you know what? Let me tell you one thing you should keep in mind from now on. When the time comes, don't go expecting someone to come save you. Now, this line, of course, can be taken many ways. You could see it as him saying this to maybe humanity as a whole, or you could see this as him saying this to just powerful individuals or heroes or people who are capable of being heroes. And I'm more inclined to agree with the latter here because he's talking to Tatsumaki. He knows that she has psychic powers. I mean, it's said in the previous panels here. So I'm going to assume that he's talking about, if you can defend yourself or if you have power, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Don't expect someone to come save you when you're in dire straits or something. You got to take it upon yourself. And I'm thinking that's probably more so what he's saying here because, why else would he be a hero? Why would he voluntarily save people if he just wanted them to save themselves? You know what I mean? But like I said, it can be taken many ways. Now, Blast was obviously an active hero for some time, and the last time that we saw or heard about him, be a hero was going against Elder Centipede, and that's 2 years previous from the current time in the story. But also, that's kind of around the time that the S-Class was formed. So the way that I see it is that Blast kind of went away when the S-Class came to be. He was like, okay, I don't really need to be active anymore. You guys have proven that you can, pretty much take things from here. And that way, he didn't become the symbol of peace. He didn't become this one entity that everyone has to rely on. And, he has to make sure that he's always going to be there to save the day. He allowed others to grow, and he facilitated this team of heroes, which, the S-Class kind of is the symbol of peace in a way. I mean, aside from King, but, everybody sees the S-Class heroes as the end-all be-all, an S-Class hero is here, we're definitely going to be saved. But on the other hand, if we go to the My Hero world, All Might kind of didn't let this happen because he was the symbol of peace and he was so overbearing and so incredibly overpowered that there was no one else on Earth, like we were saying, that could come close to him, whether they were a hero or villain. So we do have the top 10 Billboard rankings, but compared to All Might, they're basically just regular people because that's how far of a gap between them there is. And when All Might finally is taken out of the picture because, he's completely drained of his power when he goes against All For One, everybody's really worried about it. They're like, oh no, All Might's gone. We're really vulnerable now. I mean, even the heroes themselves kind of come to terms with that. It's like, wow, now that All Might's not here, I don't know how we're going to keep things under control. And we see that as a continuing conflict to this day in the story. So that's where it goes into All Might, him coddling humanity kind of gave them this false sense of security. And it was something that he wasn't always going to be able to maintain. As where Blast, on the other hand, his ideology kind of makes up for that when he's like, look, you know what, I'll be here. If you guys truly have a crisis, I'll come and save you. But other than that, take care of it yourself. Rely on others and not just me. I mean, obviously, both are right and both are wrong in their own ways. But let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. If you liked the video, guys, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon and a Twitch. Please check out the Twitch and the Patreon, guys. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.